Okay, you've had the underwater documentary filmmaker, you've had the professional surfer, and now you get the policy advisor. So I'm going to try and make this as lighthearted as I possibly can, okay? I think I went through this earlier on. I gave this presentation to my dog today at lunchtime, and he gave me a look that really said, this is what you do for a living? I'm so disappointed. I think I've got two boring slides, okay? This isn't one of them, okay? There's a couple of things I want you to think about when we talk about the oceans. One, I want to think about stakeholders. There's some very obvious stakeholders. Stakeholders is the term we use for, industry or business or environmentalists, but every citizen is a stakeholder. I want you to think about that, okay? I want you to think about the oceans as an environmental thing. They're good economically. They're good socially. They're very important, and you'll hear more about that from others, and you've heard it already today. Okay? My job, in a nutshell, if I had to explain it to my kids, is my job is to make the oceans good, which makes me sound amazing, but it's really, really hard. It's like saying I climb mountains. It sounds amazing, but it's quite hard. This is one of my stakeholders, okay? This is my middle daughter, okay? She's the difficult middle child. Her name is Hannah, and Hannah, this is Hannah telling me that I'm doing a good job. My main job is being a dad, by the way, okay? My part-time job is fixing the oceans. And this is Hannah telling me, one of my stakeholders is telling me, you're doing a good job there, Dad. Today was okay, right? You'll see some other slides later on where maybe I don't do as good a job, okay? Now, this is one of the boring slides, okay? So when I say good, I'm talking about good environmental status for the oceans, okay? And if you just take a quick scan of that, you can click off a whole lot of words there that you would see in a kind of ecosystem bingo competition. So it's diverse and clean, it's sustainable, it's human use is acceptable, the ecosystem must be resilient. So if humans derive an income or a living or exploit an ecosystem, it must be done at a sustainable level. We heard Ken talk there about cold water coral systems, which are very fragile and not very resilient. Other elements are quite resilient. So again, what we do, it's linked to the resilience of the ecosystem, okay? You can see some things there about how human pressure mustn't have any negative effects on the ecosystem. Biodiversity must be managed, and we must reverse any declines we have in it, okay? Now, any of you who've come to the Clean Coast Awards will have seen this. This is my Dulux color card, okay? This is how we sub-describe the idea of good. So you can imagine if you have kids, you could break these down into how much time you spend playing with them, how much time you spend storytelling, how much time you're just being generally helpful and giving them money for chocolate. So again, these are the descriptors of good, okay? And each one is subdivided. And if you're smart enough, you'll see that some of these are things humans do to the ocean. So look at marine litter, number 10. Our energy and noise, number 11. These are things we do, and this is ways of describing pollution. And then you can see the things we impact. So biological diversity. Think about the apex predators that Ken was talking about, the top of the food chain, the charismatic macrofauna, the whales and dolphins, okay? We impact on how they live their lives, okay? The food web, the seafloor, and what we do. So we have to measure the ocean under each of these descriptors, and then we have to monitor it, and then we have to actually do things, and what I'll try and explain to you here today is what we're doing to reverse the trend in terms of pollution and to improve the state of the ecosystem. And I'll tell you how we're going to do it and how we do it over time. Okay? Now, one of the things you'll notice is we drop into three-letter acronyms very quickly on this stuff. So here we don't call it good environmental status anymore, we call it GES, right? And we do this all over Europe. It's how we earn a living by coming up with acronyms. So we have GES, and then we have ESA for economic and social activities, and DICE is data and information and knowledge exchange. Very, very boring. So we'll try and skip that. Okay, this is one of my other stakeholders. I don't keep this one at home, okay? But these stakeholders don't smile the way my kids smile. So I have to have a monitoring program. One of the big things we do, not only in Ireland but in other countries, is we have monitoring programs for all of the elements. So you've heard about litter surveys. We create noise registers. We measure contaminants, physiochemical contaminants. And we also measure the abundance of these creatures because they tell us so much as indicators about the health of the ecosystem. And we do this on a timescale. All these laws run on a timescale. This law runs on a 6-year timescale. That's the general standard for European laws. But you can see, you don't have to have any great education to understand that a whale takes more than 6 years to grow. Okay, so there are natural time limit scales as well. There are economic time scales, there are political time scales, but we generally run our legislative time on a 6-yearly basis. And we're in the middle of the first cycle for this directive now. This directive started in 2012. Before I get into it in any more detail, I just want you to pause and think about Ireland and the sea. Now, I can't speak as eloquently as some of the others about it, but this is a photograph I took, and I'm quite proud of it. I actually have it hanging in my toilet downstairs, so every time I flush, I remember where it goes. So this is mizzen head, but not looking towards America like we normally do, or to fasten it. This is looking back up the coast of Cork towards Kerry. Okay? And I'm quite conscious of the fact that as a country, we take the ocean for granted. It's an abstract concept to many of us. We're never going to see an abyssal canyon. None of us are really going to ever touch it. We probably have a greater chance of getting to the moon than getting to one of these canyons. If you think about Ireland and what the sea means for us, okay, the people of the Arctic have 40 words, 40, for describing snow. In Irish, there are 31 words for seaweed, okay? You'll always spot the Irishman if you travel around the world. He's the guy boasting about the Gulf Stream like it's central heating he got installed. We don't get cold winters, not in Ireland. Oh, no, because we got the Gulf Stream. Like we had it specially installed, okay? And that then defines our climate. I mean, our competitive advantage on land is we can grow grass faster than anybody else in the world. And we can do that because of the Gulf Stream. So the ocean defines Ireland as a country, okay? This is the real map of Ireland, okay? So the red line is our territorial claim. So this is how much of the seabed we can plant a flag on. The red curved line is our exclusive economic zone. That's 488,000 square kilometres. The land mass of Ireland is 70,000 square kilometres. It's just under 9 times larger of seabed and water column that we can plant the flag on, that's our sovereign, that we have a responsibility towards to protect and to use in a sustainable way. Ken has spoken about the 50% of the oxygen we breathe coming from the ocean. It absorbs 30% of our CO2. In Europe, 90% of our trade with the outside world is done via the oceans. Internally, it's 40%. There is 500 billion euro and 3.6 million jobs associated with the ocean, and that has nothing to do with the ecosystem in terms of protecting it, but that's our job. Our job is to make sure we look after the ecosystem. Now, for any of you landlubbers, this is a description of an ecosystem. I was in an interview recently, and I started talking about ecosystems, and a very, very senior person in a very respected organization cut me straight off and said, I don't want you to use technical words like an ecosystem. I don't understand them. So I said, well, look, the river doesn't know that it's a sewer, and it doesn't know that it's for drinking water or for transport or kayaking, nor does the sea. So that's an ecosystem. So this field is an ecosystem. The room is an ecosystem. The city is an ecosystem. I was thinking about this earlier on. My house is an ecosystem, and many components of it are in poor condition. So, and I keep getting told that by my commander-in-chief. So the way humans normally work is we don't work looking at the overall ecosystem. We look at the kid's bedroom being a mess, or we look at the fact that the floor hasn't been swept. So we look at elements of it, okay? And how we're supposed to do things in Europe is we're supposed to do things on an ecosystem basis, okay? So if you look at this pizza chart here, okay, each one of the internal pizza slices is one of the older pieces of legislation. So I'll buy you a drink if you can tell me what they all mean, okay? But there's Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive, there's bathing water, there's habitats, okay? You have Common Fisheries Policy. Each one deals with a small segment. If you take the Dulux colour card, each one deals with a little small segment of it, okay? And then around that, you have the Water Framework Directive, which looks at the fresh water and the coastal ecosystem and out to 1 nautical mile. And then you have the Marine Strategy Framework Directive, which covers all water from the foreshore right out to 220 nautical miles. And it's supposed to look at things from an ecosystem point of view, which is a beautiful thing, and it's a really good idea because, as I said, the ocean doesn't know that we use it for surfing or for fishing or for transport. It just knows it's the ocean. And ask a kid, and they'll say the same thing to you. It's just the sea, okay? But this is how governments solve problems, okay? So I was going to say this looks like my office, but my office isn't this clean, okay? But what governments do, and not just governments, we do it in our day-to-day lives, universities do it. You take the building we're in here, there's a civil engineering department. There's a department of medicine. So these are all the silos that humans like to segment the world into. It's how we make sense of things. It's completely normal, okay? It's how we rationalize things. We split them up, we study them, and we try and reassemble them. So we think in silos. And if you think in silos, it's very hard to look at the ecosystem, okay? So it's not a great ecosystem to work in, and then it's not a great way to address the environment or the oceans, okay? Now, this is my really boring slide. Okay, I had to draft this myself, and I looked at it and I went, I don't really know what it means. It's kind of complicated. So I took out a piece of paper and I sketched it, and this is what I really mean, okay? So when we go on to think about how we will solve the problems of human impact on the ocean, this is pretty much it. So if you can steal this slide, you too can work as a policy development person, right? Because this is pretty much it, okay? So if you think about a problem like litter, okay, we know what's wrong. There's too much litter in the oceans. It's causing problems. We have research and we have new science coming, and it's telling us what's actually wrong, okay? We have rough ideas on how to fix it. Some of our ideas might be a bit crazy. Some might be pretty sensible. But we have good ideas. And if you go onto the OSPAR website, you'll see that we've actually got a really good plan for dealing with marine litter in the whole Northeast Atlantic. And then we add black magic, which you can call politics, or you can call socioeconomics, or you can call the capacity of the sectors to cope with the problem. Let's just call it black magic. It's the bit that I know a bit more about than you, so I'm calling it black magic, okay? So we can solve one problem like this, and this is our plan, and we create a program around that plan, okay? Everybody understands that. It's really simple. And then we do it 100 times, or 1,000 times, because we have 75 ways of describing good under those 11 various descriptors. And then it starts to get very confusing because each one of the things we do relates to something else. So if we say we want less fishing, then the fishermen are unemployed and we need to find jobs for them. So each one of these issues starts to become more and more complicated. And then it gets worrying when you start to play out the consequences. Okay? So this is where we say, what am I doing? What am I doing? Right? So it's a little bit worrying. And then one of your stakeholders, one of your other stakeholders, your eldest daughter, for example, gives you the look that says stakeholders are unhappy. And now she's 13 now, or she's nearly 13. This was taken when she was much younger. But you can tell from that look, you don't need to know anything about the oceans. You don't need to know anything about parenthood, okay? You just look at that and you go, do you think the dad is doing a good job there? Would you say that he has achieved good? The answer is pretty obvious, right? So, and when she finds out that this is on the internet, you can imagine what sort of status I'm going to be in, right? But again, the point I'm trying to make to you here is that it's pretty straightforward, but it can get complicated. And we've spoken already about, or others have spoken about the lack of knowledge we might have, or new and emerging information. And this is something that we need to be careful about when we develop policies. So we need to make sure the policies are appropriate for the pressures we have, and that the policies are achievable. We need to make sure that we deliver them and we move in the right direction. I'm going to leave you with this one slide, okay? And it comes back to this idea that everybody in this room is a stakeholder. Everybody watching this on the web is a stakeholder. It's not my ocean. I live on an island. I see the sea every day. I walk past it and I run past it. And it is what makes me Irish, because the sea dictates our nationality. It's big and abstract, but humans are very good at abstract concepts. Cultural identity is abstract. You can't pick it up with a spoon. All those things are abstract. Our brains are good at this, so we have to own it. This slide is one I took from a town in the middle of Italy, nowhere near the sea. Okay, it's a roundabout on a road linking the town to the motorway. And it's a tiny girl pulling a whale across the roundabout. I was in Italy last week. My hobby is running very long distances over mountains. And I was driving back to the airport, and I saw this, and I said, I have to put this into my slideshow, right? I have to do it. And I researched the piece of art, and it's called Gaia e la Balena, which in English is Gaia and the Whale. And the whole idea of it is that mankind, the child, has to take responsibility for what we do, and it's our planet, and as the apex predator, our species, we have a responsibility. And I would just leave you with one message. It's your ocean. You've got to think big because it's very big, but you've got to act small. Thank you very much.